I want to go to Kellie Sloane. She's a New South Wales opposition leader. You've seen what's unfolded last night. You've seen what's unfolded today. Your initial thoughts, Kellie?
Well, first, can I start with Josh Lees, who was just saying that should be returning the streets of Sydney to the people of Sydney. Well, can I ask him that same question? Please return our streets back to the people of Sydney and New South Wales, because every single week over the past year, they have occupied our city streets and our city parks. And to be frank, people are sick and tired of it.
Yes, they are. Look, we are going to get back to questions because he is saying all these things unchallenged at the moment. He has a few questions to answer here as well. Do you think, from what we have seen, that the intent to stay determinedly at Town Hall was to be closer to the ICC, where they must have known that 7,000 mourners were gathered? That's intimidatory.
They wanted to be in the centre of our city. They wanted to cause the greatest amount of impact. And if there were any consequences of that, any violent actions, any people unfortunately injured, he carries the consequences of that. He must share the responsibility, because they defied orders. They defied court orders, the orders of the Premier, to go to Hyde Park, where it could be more easily have managed. And can I say, the other people who defied those orders were 4 members of Chris Minns' Labor caucus, members who defied his very reasonable conditions to stay calm, to keep clear.
But do we know that, Kellie? Those 4 members, I mean, they had a right to be there and protest within the rules. Do we know that they were resisting those rules, not in keeping with the rules? I mean, if they were trying to move in a marching protest, if they didn't move on when the protest was, they would have breached those rules. But do we know that they have done that?
They breached caucus solidarity. They defied their own leaders' very reasonable request to avoid the city. He told other people, general members of public, to stay out of the city. He called for calm. He said, don't attend the protest if you don't have to. Yet 4 members of his own team defied that, undermined his authority. And I'm saying, what hope can you have of maintaining law and order in this state if your own party members, your own Labor caucus, refuse to respect your authority? They should have, at the very least, be dismissed from his caucus because it undermines the authority of their leader.
What do you think of some of the pictures that we have seen of what some are describing as police heavy-handedness? We've shown what appears to be a young man on the ground being restrained. There's an older man with his hands up. And there was the Muslim prayer service at the end, a group prayer at the end, what appeared to be at the end of this protest. Do you agree with Chris Minns that we shouldn't judge on short social media clips?
I agree with that. They are short clips and we need to see the context. What I would say, though, is this was entirely predictable, and that is why the courts, the police did not want this to proceed in that location, in such a close proximity to 6,000 mourners just down the road. It was a difficult situation for police. They have my respect. I'm very concerned that they were put in danger by having to manage a volatile situation in a very confined. That put them at risk. They have been every weekend supervising protests in our city for over a year. They've probably had a gutful. New South Wales has had a gutful. We're all sick of it. And if tensions flared, that was entirely predictable and avoidable. Protesters had of police who said, please feel free to protest. And you would expect that when you have a visiting head of state from a region that is at war. Of course, people need to protest. They should have the right to protest, but it must be done peacefully. These are professional protesters who are taking over our city, and they are ignoring the rules.
It does seem that they are. We also saw some really, if I could put it lightly, disappointing placards and chants, which are hurtful, and the Jewish community have told us time and time again that they are incitement or amount to incitement. One was globalise the Intifada. That was repeated by none other than an Australian of the Year in Grace Tame.
Well, that slogan can obviously be interpreted as an incitement for violence, and under New South Wales laws, that can carry a penalty if prosecution is sought, along with other phrases that can be chanted, along with particular slogans and placards. So this is about enforcement, but I would say that enforcement is very difficult if leadership can't be exercised in this state. And Chris Minns's leadership is being tested by his own party members, his own Labor members of Parliament. So what hope do we have of leadership across the state when that continues? And under Labor's watch,
is it really a test of Chris Minns's leadership? I mean, he was praised by Tony Abbott this morning for backing in the police. So what are you saying exactly, that if he doesn't sack these 4 members of his caucus, or, I mean, what should he do?
They should be disciplined. They should be removed from their... What is the point of having a Labor Party, which, by the way, is bound by their party rules to introduce these laws? What is the point of having lawmakers if they turn into potential lawbreakers, or at least undermine his authority? So I would say that is an incredible weakness. I mean, you can have a very reasonable leader in Chris Minns, and he is much of the time. But what is the point of that if he is battling constantly with the left Greens movement of his backbench? That makes it difficult for him to lead with authority in our state.
But it's amazing to many that you still able to say globalise the intifada with impunity. It would appear it's not hate speech, according to the law. Is that right?
No, that is not my understanding of the law. My understanding of that we have in New South Wales under 93Z, that can be prosecuted under those laws. I mean, what we have said about the new laws that Chris Minns and Labor in New South Wales is proposing to introduce is we wouldn't stand in the way.
So what should happen to Grace Tame, Kellie, in your view?
Well, I need to see the context of her speech and how it was delivered, and that's important. So some of the difficulty in prosecuting some of these phrases, if you adjust them slightly, if you say them in a different way, there can be confusion around that, or different interpretation.
It was Gadigal to Gaza, globalise the intifada, and she led it in a chant, but she didn't appear to be on a microphone when she said it, so that might be a technicality there.
Well, look, that is something that I'm sure the government's lawyers will have a look at, but I don't have a legal position on that statement. What I'm talking out more broadly is the context of a protest that control, and I blame Josh Lees and the organisers of that protest more than I blame anyone else.
Kellie, Sloane, we really appreciate your time this morning. We'll speak soon.
Thank you.